I moved into the Glenridge apartments because they were cheap and quiet. I was working freelance restoration jobs after leaving my position at the university. Mostly art, sometimes antiques. I wasn't looking for anything, just peace. The apartment was small, clean, and old. Crown molding, with floors that creaked like distant whispers. My unit, 3C, had a window that overlooked a dying garden behind the building. It was perfect until the painting showed up. I didn't buy it, didn't find it. It was just there, a framed portrait, 24 by 36, resting against the wall in my small living room when I came back from the grocery store. No note, no wrapping. The door was locked, nothing broken. It depicted a woman's face, old but not elderly. Not smiling, not sad. Just watching. The paint was oil, aging in a way I recognized. Fine cracking, yellowed varnish. I assumed the previous tenant left it and the building manager missed it during cleanup. Still, I didn't like it. The portrait fell in the middle of the night. I wasn't displaying it. It had been leaning against the wall. I woke up to the sound of glass shattering. It had tipped forward, even though I remember propping it carefully. The glass was cracked, but the canvas was fine. The weird thing? The woman's eyes looked glossier. Wet almost. I thought maybe the cracked glass played a trick on the light. But I was wrong. I had dreams that night. Of her. In the dream, I was standing at the foot of my bed, looking toward the living room. The apartment was dark, but the portrait, it was glowing faintly. Not with light, but with presence. She blinked in the painting. Not rapidly. Slowly, as if savoring the moment of being seen. When I woke up, my feet were dusty. I'd been walking. Sleepwalking. The next night, I locked my bedroom door. Something started dripping from the painting. Not in front of me, never when I was looking directly at it. But I'd come home to find faint trails, like tear marks, on the inside of the glass. They left no residue, just streaks that caught the light strangely. When I wiped them away, the cloth was dry. I started to feel a subtle pull from it. Not attraction, not fear, recognition. I asked the building manager if the last tenant left anything behind. She said the apartment had been vacant for a year. The last renter died of natural causes. No family. Was he an artist? No, she said. But the lady before him, she was. A woman? What happened to her? She paused. Honestly, she went missing. 1997. Cops cleared it up as suicide, but they never found her. I did something stupid. I hung the portrait. I wanted to understand it, maybe even study it. I took a few high-res photos, zoomed in on the brushwork. That's when I noticed something new. The woman's necklace, simple pearls, had a crack running through it, like the paint had shifted. I compared the photo to the one I took the day before. The crack wasn't there. The dreams intensified. I wasn't alone in them anymore. The apartment was filled with shadows, watching the portrait. Some murmured. Some cried. They never looked at me. Only at her. Only at the portrait. And always she cried. Clear, viscous tears that stained the frame and darkened the floorboards beneath. I woke up with the scent of turpentine in my nostrils. I tried to move the painting to the closet, but my hands wouldn't grip the frame. I mean that literally. Every time I reached out to grab it, my fingers would stop just short. Muscles would lock, like my body was being told, don't. So I grabbed a towel, wrapped it, and carried it down to the dumpster. I tossed it, heard the thud, took a photo of it lying on top of black trash bags, came back upstairs, locked the door, breathed, felt relief, until I turned around and saw it hanging right back on the wall. Clean, undamaged, still crying. I didn't sleep. After the portrait returned, I sat in a chair across from it all night, eyes fixed on hers, just watching, and she watched back. I used to say that about old paintings, how some portraits watch you, but this was different. It wasn't a metaphor. It wasn't a feeling. It was mutual. She watched. She knew. I was being seen, measured, and I didn't measure up. I set up a motion-detecting camera in the living room, facing the portrait, just to prove to myself it wasn't doing anything. The footage the next morning? Useless. Every time, at 3:07 a.m. exactly, the image glitched. The timestamp stuttered. The sound cut out. Then for one frame, just one, I wasn't in the bed. I was standing in front of the painting, hand raised. Not touching it. Pointing. I took a razor blade to the canvas. I know how this sounds, but I needed proof it was real, physical, something I could change. I pressed the blade in, and it wouldn't cut. The canvas flexed, but it didn't tear, like skin under pressure. I pressed harder, and the painting bled. A single red line from beneath her right eye. It ran down the canvas, over the frame, and vanished before hitting the floor. The razor blade was clean. A knock on my door. Early morning, 6:23 a.m. I opened it to find nothing, except a single Polaroid, taped to the peephole. The photo was of my apartment interior from the hallway. But in the image, the woman in the portrait was missing. The canvas was still there, but it was blank. No figure, no eyes, just textured paint and a vague outline, as though she'd stepped away. I searched for her, online. At first, just for the painting, then for missing women, artists, murders, suicides, dozens of pages, nothing, until I stumbled across a local news clipping archived in a university library. Local artist Miriam Landry vanished in 1997. Known for her vivid portraiture and solitary lifestyle, her final known painting was titled Mother at Dusk. It was never recovered. There was a small, grainy photo beside the article. Her face, the same face from the painting, but older, more tired, less malicious. So who was in my painting? The second tear came during the day. I watched it happen. A fat, gelatinous droplet formed at the edge of her left eye. Hung there, then ran. I wiped it with a napkin. The napkin turned gray, then disintegrated in my fingers. What kind of paint does that? I had a guest. My friend Danny stopped by. She's a curator, knows art, doesn't scare easily. I told her about the painting. Didn't mention the tears, or the blood, or the dreams. I just asked her to look at it, get a vibe. She stared at it for a long time. Finally, she said, "The brushwork's exquisite. 19th century realism. But the signature's wrong. It's underneath the varnish, like it was added after the final coating." "What do you mean?" "It's like the artist signed it from inside. She left in a hurry. Wouldn't say why. Texted me that night. Burn it." Not kidding. I tried. I poured lighter fluid over the portrait, took it out onto the back garden, and lit a match. The flame touched canvas. No ignition, not even smoke. But the flame spread on the frame, not the canvas moving in strange lines. Like writing, they formed a single word, sorrow, then vanished. The painting was untouched. No soot, no smell. But when I looked back at her face, she was smiling. I heard her voice, for the first time, barely a whisper through the walls. It said, "You saw me first." Then again, closer. "Now you'll never unsee me." There's a new figure in the background. I didn't notice it right away. Behind her, deep in shadow, someone is standing in a window of whatever house is in the background of the portrait. Barely visible, almost painted over. But he's there now. I'm sure he wasn't before. I feel him moving closer every day. The tear streaks have started to change color. They're no longer clear. They're turning black. And they don't dry. They glisten like ink. I touched one with a Q-tip. The tip caught fire instantly. No smoke, no warning. Just a silent flare, gone in seconds. I opened the back of the canvas. Cut the lining. Inside was a piece of paper, folded like a letter. A page torn from a journal. The ink smeared. I could only make out a few words. "Dot trapped," painted me into her grief. "Portrait is a door." And the last line, clearly written, no smear. "If you see her crying, it's already too late." I haven't slept in 2 nights. Not because I'm scared. I've moved past fear. I'm studying now. Recording. Trying to understand what's happening with the portrait. Because it's changing day by day. The woman's face is subtly shifting. Her expression isn't fixed anymore. Sometimes I catch it with my own eyes, her mouth opening just a little more. The black tears now fall regularly. They form perfect vertical streaks, always 3. They evaporate after 5 minutes. I time them. Sometimes I swear I see something reflected in the tears. A face that isn't hers. I recorded her last night. I placed a directional microphone beside the frame and left the room. At 3:07 a.m., the recording picked up murmurs, barely audible at first. Then they crescendoed into a clear voice. Female. Familiar. Soft but full of anger. "I'm still in here. He painted me in. He paints others now. The man in the window watches you." I scrub the audio again and again. Each time I play it, new whispers appear. Almost like the file is growing. I studied the signature again under different light. When viewed under black light, something glows just below it. A second layer of paint. An inscription, almost invisible to the naked eye. My grief became her prison. I scanned it, ran it through image enhancement. There's more underneath the paint, layered deep into canvas. Sketch lines. Another figure entirely erased and overwritten. Her eyes don't match her head alignment. She was redrawn over something else. Someone else. A terrible sound woke me. A brushstroke. That's what it sounded like. Over and over. Thick bristles sliding on canvas. But there was no brush. Just her. Still. Crying. Smiling a little wider now. And the background? It's changed again. There's a door now, open behind her. A hallway where there wasn't one before. The man in the window is no longer obscured. He's looking directly at me. I left the apartment today. Just walked out. Drove 3 hours west. Found a motel. No dreams. No painting. But when I woke, the front desk clerk handed me a small envelope left at the lobby counter with my name. Inside, a Polaroid of the motel room I was sleeping in. And there, above the headboard, was the portrait, even though that wall had been bare when I fell asleep. I drove back. Apartment 3C Fields. Warp now. The walls are bowing inward ever so slightly, like something is trying to squeeze through. And the smell, oil, turpentine, rot, is constant. The portrait is humming, not audibly, but in my bones, like a tension in the air that never breaks. I contacted Danny again, told her everything. She didn't doubt me. She just said, "The man in the background? He's the painter. He was known for portrait traps, paintings meant to imprison emotion or people. He died in 1998. Suicide. I asked how. She hesitated. He hanged himself from a canvas stretcher. There's another change. The painting's surface isn't flat anymore. It's bulging in places. From the inside, tiny distortions that pulse with rhythm. Like something is pressing up beneath the surface, struggling to get out. I touched it, and I felt something press back. A hand. Tonight, I woke up choking. Something in my throat. Rushed to the mirror, gagging. I pulled it out. A small, curled shard of canvas. Oil-soaked, glossy. I don't know how it got inside me, but I'm terrified of what might happen if I find another. I covered the painting, wrapped it in black velvet, duct taped the cloth, then placed it in the basement storage unit. I sat up all night with a hammer in hand, waiting to hear footsteps, but stayed quiet. I felt victorious, delusional even, until morning came, and there was again, back on the wall, unwrapped, no sign of tampering in the storage. But now, the hallway in the painting is longer, and there's a second figure, a silhouette, stepping out. The black tears are pooling. They no longer vanish. Instead, they collect on the bottom edge of the frame. Last night, one drop fell to the floor. It burned a hole in the wood. I touched the frame this morning, and the tip of my finger turned gray. Still hasn't returned to normal. The skin's gone dry, cracked, like old varnish. I recorded myself sleeping. From midnight to 6 a.m. Reviewing footage, I nearly screamed. At 3:07 a.m., the camera flickered, and in the bed, there was someone next to me, a shape under the blanket. I never moved, just laid there, and she turned toward the camera, eyes wide, no pupils, no face, just paint. Paint where her features should be, like a portrait, unfinished and alive. The man in the background of the portrait moved. I didn't see it happen, but I know he did. In yesterday's photo of the painting, he was inside the window, his silhouette distant. Today, he's closer to the frame's edge, still partially in shadow, but clearer. His arm is reaching out, and his hand, it's the same grayish tone my finger turned last week. I showed Danny over video call. She paled. Her screen froze. And then she said one sentence before hanging up. That's not the painter. That's his last subject. I went back to the university's archive room, pulled every record I could find on the painter. Gerald E. Coster, mid-century American artist, known in fringe circles, experimental techniques. One article mentioned emotive bindings, which were dismissed by critics as pseudo-spiritual nonsense. But another, handwritten letter buried in a donation box, never cataloged, shocked me. It read, "They only stay in the portrait if you don't look away. Once the gaze is broken, the canvas becomes a door." It was unsigned, but the handwriting matched the journal page I found inside the painting. I stared at the portrait for hours last night, determined not to blink, not to let him move. My eyes burned, but the longer I stared, the more the space around me blurred. It wasn't the paint moving, it was my apartment. The walls seemed to peel, like paint flaking from old wood. The ceiling shifted upward into darkness. I heard a soft, ragged breathing not far from my right ear. I didn't dare turn my head. I finally gave in and slept. Not long, but long enough. In the dream, I was inside the hallway behind the woman in the portrait. The walls were identical to my apartment's, only aged. Buckling wallpaper, damp wood, dim light with no visible source. And at the end of the hall, the man stood. backlit, his face a blank smear of brush strokes. He raised one hand, mine. I swear it was my hand. And then he pointed past me. I turned and saw myself nailed to the wall like a crucifix. My mouth open in a silent scream, oozing paint. I tried contacting a priest today. A desperate move, I know. I didn't tell him everything, just enough to sound troubled. He agreed to stop by. When he walked in, he immediately focused on the portrait. Didn't say a word for almost a minute. Then, "This doesn't belong here." "What is it?" I asked. "Not what, who?" "Someone's trapped in that thing." He stepped toward it, reached into his coat. Before he could pull anything out, the lights flickered. The painting's surface rippled. He dropped whatever he was holding and fled the apartment without a word. I haven't heard from him since. The woman's smile is wider now. Too wide. Her teeth, once dainty, slightly crooked, are perfect. White, sharp. She looks pleased, as if watching me suffer was the brushstroke that completed her. The man in the background is gone. Not hidden, not faded. Gone. Only the hallway remains, stretching further, deeper into darkness. And now the woman's hands, previously folded in her lap, are raised, fingers pointing outward, right at me. There's new paint on my bedroom ceiling. I didn't put it there. It wasn't there last night. It's spreading like a mildew stain, but in vibrant oil hues, burnt umber, cadmium red, charcoal black. And at the center, a shape is forming. A face. Her face. Upside down, like she's watching me from above. I moved my bed into the hallway, but the shape followed. Now it appears on the wall behind me, no matter where I sleep. Today, I heard my own voice call my name, from inside the canvas. 3 times, Elias. Elias. Elias, come see. When I got close, the surface looked like water, shimmering. I saw my reflection, but it wasn't doing what I was doing. It was smiling. I tried smashing the painting again. Used a hammer. Swung as hard as I could. The hammer shattered. Handle splintered. Metal bent. The portrait remained. Except now, there's a second Elias in the background. Barely formed. Blurred. But it's me. And I'm standing beside her, behind her shoulder. Danny returned. She brought an art historian friend who claimed to know about painted spirits, a fringe theory in occult circles about souls bound to canvas. He looked at the portrait once and vomited, then said, "You're not living alone anymore. It's wearing you." What does that mean? You'll understand soon, when she starts crying blood. When they left, she begged me, "Please, don't sleep in that apartment again." I nodded, then lied. I haven't left since. The woman is no longer crying tears. She's crying oil. Thick, black, glistening. And as it hits the frame, it forms letters. One by one, until it spells, "One of US, I bled black this morning." From a nosebleed. Thick, slick, slightly iridescent. I dabbed it with a tissue, and it stained the air, the scent of turpentine and linseed oil filling the room. I held the tissue up to the light. There were brushstrokes inside the clot. Tiny brushstrokes, like something had painted my blood before it left my body. I stood in front of the portrait, trembling. Her eyes looked deeper than ever. The color behind her irises had changed, no longer gray. Now a dark, sickly shade of blue-black, like bruised flesh. My skin has begun to flake. Not like sunburn, more like canvas. When I scratch, it doesn't scab, it cracks. Underneath, not raw skin or red tissue, but a thin film of linen texture. Stretched tight. I ran my fingers over it in horror. It was cool to the touch, like dry pigment. I am being painted into something, or onto something. I found another note behind the painting, taped to the back of the frame. I swear it wasn't there before. It read, "The frame is the doorway. The soul must be emptied before the body enters. You're halfway gone now, Elias." It wasn't signed, but the handwriting was mine. Not similar. Exactly mine. And I don't remember writing it. My reflection is wrong again. Delayed. Slightly slower to smile, to move, to blink. But sometimes, it is things I don't do. Last night, I watched it as I stood perfectly still, and it pressed its face to the mirror. Smiling. Wide. Unbroken. Lips cracking like old paint. I backed away. It stayed against the glass for several minutes. Watching. I received a voicemail from Danny. Only static at first. Then, through the noise, her voice, shaking, "Elias. He's out. The man in the background. I saw him. He's in my hallway. He's wearing your face. He's looking for the canvas, I think. Don't let her finish you, Elias. Don't let her cry again. It's what she wants. It's how she gets in." Then a long silence, and a final whisper. She's standing behind me. Click. My apartment has stopped obeying physics. Walls elongate. Doors don't lead where they should. Sometimes the windows reflect different rooms. Rooms I've never been in, filled with unfamiliar furniture and burning candles. The portrait now dominates the entire living room wall. It's bigger, easily 6 feet tall, and her arms have moved again. They are reaching forward out of the frame, like she's trying to pull something in, or someone, a breakthrough or a breakdown. I meditated in front of the painting, not sure why. Maybe to prove I could face it, maybe to beg. Half an hour in, I slipped into a trance, and I heard her, clearer than ever. "You are the canvas now. He is the brush, and I am the grief that stains you. You never knew me, but I knew you. I chose you the moment you looked too long." Then silence. When I opened my eyes, my clothes were wet with black oil, and the painting had vanished. But the wall was soaked in paint, still dripping. I found her name again, not on the painting, on me. It had formed across my back in gray script, as if painted beneath my skin, rising from underneath in cursive scars. Miriam. I screamed. I clawed at it until my fingernails cracked, but it wouldn't leave. And in the mirror, she wore my face now, laughing, weeping, merging. Danny is missing. Her apartment was found unlocked. Phone still charging. A chair overturned. A black handprint on the wall. No sign of struggle. But her bathroom mirror had a message written in condensation. Wrong frame. The same handwriting as the letter behind my painting. My handwriting. The man is back, but not in the painting. In my home. I see him at the end of the hallway, just out of reach. Always in shadow. I tried rushing him, screaming, turning on every light. But when I got close, there was nothing, except footprints. Black paint in the shape of bare feet leading toward the portrait, and vanishing into the wall behind it. I'm starting to lose time. I'll wake up in different rooms, holding brushes, my hands covered in paint I don't own, canvas fibers under my nails. Yesterday, I woke up to find a small painting nailed to my front door. It was of Danny, eyes wide, mouth sewn shut, tears streaked down her face. Black, viscous, familiar. And in the background, me, standing behind her, holding a brush. The oil in my veins has replaced the blood. I cut my palm today, to prove I still could bleed. But what came out wasn't blood. It was paint, wet, moving. It pulled into the shape of her eye on the floor and blinked once. Every mirror now shows only her. Every photo I take includes her face in the background, no matter what I point the lens at. I ripped all reflective surfaces out, but when I closed my eyes, I saw her anyway, inside my skull, looking out